At this rate, we're going to need a Voice of College Football transfer portal channel. What do you think of that? Welcome in, everyone, on a Sunday afternoon, probably a bit chilly where you are, I'm guessing. Even down in the depths of Florida, it's been down in the 20s, 30s, 40s overnight, from what I understand, what I see, what I hear. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. And the Amazon links in the description section. Doesn't cost you a penny. Same shopping experience. Grab the Amazon link. We're trying to help those folks out at Amazon. All right. I was having a conversation with our buddy Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm over the weekend. Said, Mark, you need a transfer portal channel. Whoa. Hang on. We got too much to deal with right now, but he's got a good point. So we try to cover the transfer portal as much as we possibly can here at the Voice of College Football, of course, focusing on each individual team that we cover here, which is, of course, look around the array of channels. We've got tons of channels, tons of teams that we cover, and we get requests all the time to start another channel, but we want to do the ones that we currently own. We want to do them right. So we will hopefully add at some point. But for right now, concerning the transfer portal, I thought, you know what? A lot's been going on recently. There are more updates today, more activity. This would be a good destination each and every day to all of us get together. Which reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, but I won't go into that. All of us get together and we will run down the transfer portal. So we're here right now, just prior to the NFL playoff game. So if you want to catch the NFL playoffs, we'll get you ready. And you can obviously multitask now, social media and all that business. You guys watch like 3 screens at a time. So we shouldn't even be concerned with that. Many of you could care less about the NFL. Also, want to let everyone know before we get started on today's activity, we are going to be here Monday through Friday this week, right here on the main channel, Monday through Friday, every day, 4 p.m. Eastern time, with a transfer portal update. That's all we are going to talk about. Now, if we have some kind of late-breaking news, such as Nick Saban retired, that's not going to happen. I threw a crazy one out there, like Nick Saban's going to retire. Like if something like that would happen, and I know that's not going to happen, but if something that dramatic, that important, that historic would happen, then of course we would alter our programming. You know that anytime there's a coaching change, just about 99% of the time, we are here to discuss that coaching change with you. So late breaking news aside, we're going to be here Monday through Friday this week, 4 p.m. Eastern time, looking at the transfer portal with an update. We've invited our many media contributors here at the Voice of College Football that you know and love to jump on and to give us a quick update on their team as well. So not just me, but we're going to dive into this together each and every day. So let's go to the happenings from today. First, let's see if there's anything out there that you guys want to bring to my attention, because many times, hey, you guys follow your teams better than I do. That's for sure. High Creek Fishing, let's go. OH. There's probably an IO somewhere there in the chat. John D'Adamo, of course. Join John Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern, right here on the main channel with the Ocho. Please hit the like button as well. Ed's here. The Rod Farva's here as well. The real MVP. Man, already making a forecast of Ohio State and Georgia and everybody else. Let me get that in the right order. Georgia and Ohio State and everyone else. Lane Kiffin's tweeting about Ohio State. I wouldn't know that. Don't follow Lane Kiffin, but is tweeting about Ohio State. What's he complaining about? Dion, thanks for being here, man. GBR and Go Big Ten, except the West Coast teams who destroyed their own conference to steal Big Ten money. I think they're going to have to contribute. They're not going to steal the money. I think they're actually going to add value. So, Dion, get your point. I got it. But I know that this is going to be interesting, and we're going to see it play out a little bit more throughout the summer, where you got the old guard Big Ten and that are not going to be accepting of the other four. And that's the way it's going to be. I think Big Ten fans have come to accept Nebraska's in the conference, Maryland's in the conference, Rutgers are in the conference, and look at them as full-fledged members at this point. But it took a while. The Michigan portal is soon to open. Interesting point there, Ed Rogers. So Jim Harbaugh, we understand, is headed out to Los Angeles for a second interview with the Chargers, correct? And he's finished up interviews with the Falcons, and there was another team, I thought. Was there anybody else involved? So, yes. And that's something we talked about with Lars Hansen with Huskies podcast, Locked On Huskies podcast. Let me do that service for Lars there and get that correct. Lars Hansen jumping on with us yesterday, and we discussed Washington football. Wanted to really take the deep dive. So if you want to get caught up on Washington football, check out the live stream we did yesterday with Lars Hansen. Now, we were on here aside from Lars and talking other teams and so forth, but man, we did a concentrated 45, 50 minutes to an hour on Washington football. Jed Fish, Kalen DeBoer, the current roster, the incoming transfers, the transfers lost, the quarterback room. What does that look like? At that point, Noah Fifita was still out there. Now, Noah Fifita has been a tremendous retainment, great retention move. We discussed this at the end of our conversation yesterday as the news had just broke that Noah Fifita was staying at Arizona. So that's the first big win for Brent Brennan at San Jose State. And also I can't remember his last name. I'm going to botch his first name if I try it. Tatora, one of the outstanding young defensive players in the Pac-12, who also announced, and I want to get his name right, I owe him that much, certainly out of respect, but we will dive into that and look at that situation. But those are two enormous retention pieces for Brent Brennan at Arizona to keep his quarterback and his best defensive player. So again, the Washington deep dive with Lars Hansen, check out yesterday's live stream. But this is the thing that really hit me during that conversation was that is something that I wasn't really thinking about with the transfer portal in previous years. And for whatever reason, last year just didn't seem to be as abrupt when we had coaching changes. And check out the coaching hire video that I posted a couple days ago. I ranked the 11 coaching hires for 2024. But I'm also going to cut a video here soon where we're going to go back to the first-year head coaches from 2023, Deion Sanders, Matt Rule, Luke Fickell, all of them, and assess their first year. But I don't remember, of course, there was change, there was churn when a particular coach left a school and came to another school. There was that. But I don't remember it just being a throw the door open and just watch the players have to shoulder their way out and fight to see who's going to be the first one out the door. But maybe that shows a lot of loyalty and commitment to those previous coaches, that those players made decisions to play for Nick Saban, to play for Kalen DeBoer. And now we're seeing, of course, a lot of those Washington players moving to Alabama. Austin Mack in particular, the quarterback who will be vying for a starting spot. And we see more headed toward Tuscaloosa. And we may see more making the flight from Seattle to Tuscaloosa, which probably stops in Kansas City or Dallas or somewhere. Yeah, I never flew into Tuscaloosa. when I lived down there. That flight would go into Birmingham, or we would take the flight into the Golden Triangle Airport there in Columbus, Mississippi. All right. So Ed's got it down right. And again, that wasn't something that really hit me, just to think, okay, the transfer portal, we got the window after the season, then we've got the window after spring practice. Oh, no. Well, if we had 11 new coaches in the Power Five this past season. Well, if we're going to be in that same range, all those players get to transfer, get that 30-day window. So it just extends the transfer portal over, just keeps it going, keeps it going, keeps it going. We are only about 5 weeks away from spring practice for most teams. They will start the first week of March. We just saw Miami's schedule and talked about it on our Miami show this week. They start on March 3rd. That's like 5 weeks away. The transfer portal for these teams that just had head coaches leave, 30 days. That's going to take us almost to spring practice. And then as soon as spring practice is over, boop, it's going to open wide open for most of the month of April into May. I don't know when that date is. I got to think it's about April 15th, because that's about the time. No, it's got to be later than that. Most of the spring practice, most of these spring games are anywhere from the first Saturday of April all the way through April. And of course, we will cover it here at the Voice of College Football, but I'm coming back to, yes, I'm usually here on Saturdays during April running down the spring games. So that's going to be a May calendar event. Transfer portal, here we go again. All right. So we do appreciate everyone being here, and we're going to get right to it. Yes, Dion, Lane must be out of money, therefore he's got to complain. That's like, Lane Kiffin's a great coach, but he was complaining last year about Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M buying players. Well, you're not buying players just because you don't have as much money as they do. So with 133 teams in the country, probably 100 of them don't have Ole Miss money. So are we okay? And are you, Lane Kiffin, okay with those other 100 coaches complaining about, well, I don't have as much money as Ole Miss to spend on players, to get players? So how can I say this politely? Shut up. Shut up. Just shut up and stop complaining about other teams buying players. You're doing the same thing. So just shut up. And maybe I'm speaking out of place because I didn't see what Lane Kiffin had to say. But if he's complaining about anyone, it was Texas A&M last year. It must be Ohio State, I guess, this year. Just shut up. All right, let's get to the transfer portal for today. And this is what we've got. And I'm going to have to make a note now that I've stated it like that, to either I need a producer, to either clarify Lane Kiffin's stance and what he apparently posted today on X. I'm going to get into the habit of saying X. It is X. And especially since I much more support and agree with the current leadership on X than the morons that were running it before. So anyway, I'll just have to check that out. I will just have to check that out. That'll be interesting. All right. So we've got Tennessee doing really well. So Tennessee's a player in all of this, as everyone else is, but meaning on the positive side. So Jackson Moy is a defensive lineman out of Stanford. And I would be mighty careful taking players from Stanford, but they've got a few good ones, and they're losing one here. Jackson Moy, Stanford to Tennessee, defensive lineman, 15 tackles this past season. Defensive line stats are difficult to interpret. A lot of those guys are extremely good at what they do, and they're just tying up blocks. They are tying up blocks. They are pushing guards and tackles into the backfield, which is disrupting plays and allowing other players to clean it up. So anyway, 15 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, a half a sack, a pass defensed, which is probably a batted down pass, which is one of my favorite plays in college football or in football, period. 37 tackles out of Moy in his career, 5.5 tackles for loss, a sack, and 1 batted pass. So that's a Tennessee pickup from Stanford Jackson Moy. And we will see that Tennessee has also been able to take in one Lance Hurd. Lance Hurd, and this was a discussion point here at the Voice of College Football a number of times when we talked LSU, that LSU in 2022 had an extremely young offensive line that just got better and better and better. And they pretty much just trotted out almost exclusively freshmen and a couple sophomores. And then they came back this season with a veteran offensive line that had all that experience from the previous season. And LSU had one of the best offenses in the country, led by Jaden Daniels. But make no mistake about it, the offensive line had much to do with it. Now, Lance Hurd only started 1 game, but he did play in all 12 games up front along the offensive line. So he was playing meaningful snaps for LSU and was a top prospect. And Lance Hurd, again, 12 games played, true freshman for LSU, and he is going to Tennessee. So Tennessee bulks up on the offensive line, the defensive line right there. Here is one that we discussed. Well, not necessarily. So Lars Hansen was on, and he talked about the possibility of Parker Brailsford moving on. And then lo and behold, later that day, so this was late last night, 15 hours ago, roughly, Parker Brailsford tracks his old coach, Kalen DeBoer, who is now his new coach and his same coach, from Seattle to Tuscaloosa. So Parker Brailsford, this guy is a star in the making. He was a freshman All-American. And consider what his team achieved, and consider what the center position involves, the line calls, and a leadership component at the center position, where he is protecting Michael Penix, and he's paving the way for Dylan Johnson, a 1,000-yard running back, and he's a freshman All-America. His team goes to the national championship game. So he's moving on to Alabama. We, of course, saw Alabama's former center, Seth McLaughlin, struggle with the snaps, primarily in the Rose Bowl game against Michigan, but also those were not uncommon throughout the season. McLaughlin had his struggles at center, so he leaves, and Alabama gets probably a better player. I don't know what the ratings say. We could look at that. 247 Sports has its transfer portal rankings, and then we can look at the talent ceiling of the recruiting rankings. But Brailsford takes over for McLaughlin at center for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Kalen DeBoer, his old coach, new coach, and same coach. All right, then we've got a situation where we haven't seen a lot of this. Players transferring from Oregon to Oregon State, Washington to Washington State, USC to UCLA, Ohio State to Michigan, and of course, I also mean vice versa in all those circumstances. Georgia, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Florida, Clemson, South Carolina. But here we go. We've got a rivalry. Now, we did have Darrell Jackson, one of Miami's defensive tackles, transfer to Florida State at this point last year. And then the NCAA would not grant a waiver. And I don't remember where that landed. I don't know if he finally got on the field late in the season or not, much like the North Carolina wide receiver who left Kent State, came back to North Carolina because of a family situation, didn't get on the field, and then finally did about game 7 or 8. But Darrell Jackson was a prominent transfer from Miami to Florida State last year. And now we see Rodney Hill. Rodney Hill was a big recruit for Florida State. He was about their third running back. He was definitely not a top 2 guy because they had Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili. He might not have even been number 3. I think he was number 3, though. 190 yards gained last year, 3.8 per carry, 1 touchdown. And he's been carrying the football occasionally for Florida State for the last 2 years, 334 yards, 4.3 per carry, 2 touchdowns. Caught 5 balls out of the backfield. So Rodney Hill's not a superstar, not a great player. Good player, a lot of talent, a lot of ceiling. Maybe he will become prominent at Miami. So he makes an interesting move there from Florida State to Miami. Our buddy Joey Foster had made the statement yesterday on a call that Frank Fear, so Frank Fear hosts our West Virginia show over on our Mountaineer channel. And Frank Fear had run some numbers, and I would love to have a conversation with Frank, stating that 67% of Power 5 transfers, Power 5 players transfer to Group of 5 schools. I don't know. We've just run down 4 players, and they all went from a Power 5 to a Power 5. Now, that's a mighty small sample size. So Rodney Hill, I don't know if we have any thoughts out there about anybody we've talked about thus far. The Rod Farva asking about Casey Thompson. Yes, he did. We posted a video about that. It's right here on the main channel. Casey Thompson will most undoubtedly be the backup quarterback at Oklahoma, which is kind of strange that Casey Thompson, I know that he wanted to play at Oklahoma originally, that he was close to signing with Oklahoma, but they didn't necessarily pursue him at that level. He went to Texas. We know what the deal was there, that he battled with Hudson Card for the job, that he had a big 2020 Alamo Bowl. He replaced Sam Ehlinger. Texas was crushing Colorado 1-0. And Casey Thompson came in and for about 8 passes delivered one of the more impressive performances I've seen in a short period of time in the Alamo Bowl. Then he won the job at Texas. And he led the Big 12 in touchdown passes in 2021. And then he left for Nebraska. Figured to be, in my eyes, from a passing standpoint, a pretty substantial upgrade over Adrian Martinez. And had a decent season in 2022 with Nebraska, but he got hurt late in the season, and their passing game completely imploded without Casey Thompson. Trey Palmer was lost. Didn't have anyone to throw him the ball. And then, of course, they picked up Jeff Sims. So this was the surprise to me, the Rod Farva, is that Casey Thompson, being as good as he is, which I'm not selling him as an elite quarterback by any stretch, but a top 30 quarterback when he played at Texas, when he played at Nebraska, that Nebraska signed Jeff Sims. And I thought, that's a nice backup piece for Casey Thompson. But no, lo and behold, Casey Thompson transferred and Jeff Sims was named the starter. He was horrible, but he was named the starter. And he lost his job. He got hurt, but also lost his job just because he had one of the worst stretches of quarterback play you'll ever want to see. I think he threw 1 touchdown and 6 picks, and it was worse than that to watch. So I don't know what was going on there in the evaluation process, because I'm sitting here 2,000 miles away and don't want to say that I was right, but I think a lot of people were right. Casey Thompson versus Jeff Sims prior to 2022. Not that I would have considered it to be just no competition, that Casey Thompson was Bryce Young and Jeff Sims had done nothing, but I certainly didn't have to think much about the comparison between those two quarterbacks to think Casey Thompson's a better quarterback than Jeff Sims. That was my thought. But then Jeff Sims won the job without there being a competition. And I figured, well, Matt Rule knows what he's doing, and Jeff Sims must be better. And also better suited to what Matt Rule wants to do, which was running the football. So now Casey Thompson plays the 1 year at FAU. I have no idea what kind of season Casey Thompson had. But now I find this a curious move. Unless Casey Thompson is completely determined that he does not have a future in football past being a college player, that he would go to Oklahoma to back up Jackson Arnold. Of course, he's only one play away from starting. That can always happen. And not that he's not going to compete for the job, but we talked to our guy, Johnny Hoover from Sooners Nation, Fan Nation, and he said this is not a competition, that Casey Thompson's going to be the backup. So I would think he would go somewhere where he could at least compete for the job. But again, only one play away. So Casey Thompson comes back. And of course, his dad played for the Sooners. And I want to see what kind of season Casey Thompson had. Casey Thompson, this past season at FAU, with, of course, Tom Herman as the head coach. So we've got Casey Thompson with he got hurt. 3 games. Guess I forgot that. 3 games. Hit 63%, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. But that 2021 season is the season I was alluding to. After the 2020 bowl game, which culminated with 6 touchdown passes, not all in that bowl game, but a lot of them, like 3, 6 touchdown passes in 17 attempts. That's pretty good ratio. I think his rating was 298 with 17 pass attempts. Anyway, on to the stuff that is meaningful. Led the Big 12 in touchdown passes. Then he went to Nebraska, had a decent season, 63%, much better than what they had before. Certainly much better than what they had last season. Man, if Casey Thompson would have stayed in Nebraska and won the starting job, they would have made a bowl game last year. There's no way that they're losing. They lost by 3 points to Iowa, overtime to Wisconsin, 3 points on an end zone interception by Chubba Purdy to Maryland. Nebraska would have gone to a bowl game if Casey Thompson was a quarterback last year. But he went to FAU and got hurt, and now he's going to finish up his career, supposedly, at Oklahoma. So that's the deal on him. Back to the portal. And to remind everyone, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App is probably the most effective way to support us here at the Voice of College Football. Again, MarkRogersTV, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And it's easier to find those links. They're down in the description section. We also have an SEC channel that we're mighty proud of, that we launched at the beginning of the season. We had conversations this week on Ole Miss and Arkansas. So those are in the process of being posted. So check those out. And we will continue to cover the SEC, of course, over on the SEC channel in particular. And there we go. Caden Proctor. Of course, Caden Proctor was the prized jewel of the class. So the two top players in the transfer portal coming from Bama, Caden Proctor, Caleb Downs. Downs goes to Ohio State, and Proctor leaves Alabama to come to Iowa. And so is that going to shift the power between the two conferences? But it is two prominent players, the top two players in the portal, leaving the SEC and moving to the Big Ten. I posted a video this morning. You may want to check it out. It's on the Iowa channel about the 5 reasons that Caden Proctor is a massive, massive addition for Iowa. Some of them are obvious. Some of them may be less than obvious. So Caden Proctor shuns Iowa after he committed to the Hawkeyes as the number 1 rated tackle in the country and a top 10 player in the class of 22. Commits to the Hawkeyes, flips to Bama, plays for Nick Saban for 1 year. We don't know if that's the reason why he's leaving Bama, is because he committed to Nick Saban and Saban's gone, or also hearing from sources, and Corey Brad told us this the other day, that he's a bit homesick. And I had mentioned that just as conjecture. Sometimes you go off to school and it's just a different part of the country, different vibe, different feel, attitude, whatever it is. And you'd like to play closer to home. So check out anything you want on Caden Proctor. Corey Brad has got it covered from the Hawkeye of the Storm. But I also chime in with my 5 reasons why Caden Proctor is a massive addition for the Hawkeyes. As we keep this thing going, we've got, okay, here we go. Another defection from Tuscaloosa. Alabama cornerback Trey Amos, I've heard it pronounced Amos, commits to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, what are you complaining about? I'll have to check out that tweet. So Trey Amos leaves Bama, goes to Ole Miss. 5 passes defense, 12 tackles this year in his career, which includes time at Louisiana. So he left Louisiana, transferred to Alabama. So he really stepped up to the big time. He had 71 tackles playing at Louisiana in the Sun Belt Conference with 3 tackles for loss and a pick. Trey Amos, I'd like to find out a little bit more. Let's dive into this article, because I got to say, I watched Alabama how much? In addition to, of course, the 2 playoff games. I also saw the Arkansas game, most of it. I saw most of the Tennessee game. I saw some of the Iron Bowl. I saw the Texas game. I saw the LSU game, the SEC championship game, a couple playoff game, or 1 playoff game. So I saw quite a bit of Alabama football. I must have seen them play 7 or 8 times. Yeah, the Ole Miss game, the Texas A&M game, most of those games. And I remember hearing about Trey Amos, hearing about him, knowing that he was out there on the field, but I didn't have any impression of how good he is. So we'll check out 247 Sports, and we'll, of course, give this attribution to David Johnson. Good fortune keeps coming to Ole Miss through the transfer portal. And this is after they got the commitment from Tennessee transfer cornerback Brandon Turnage, who is next on my list. Alabama transfer portal corner Trey Amos. We went down his stats, 15 passes, or 15. Let me start over. 12 tackles, 5 passes defensed, 71 tackles in his career in Louisiana. Oh, I thought we'd get some more there. So we've got, again, I could post his stats, but I just read them off. So that's all there is there. So if you've got any impressions on that pickup, I think it's a pretty considerable one. I'm not going to sell this kid as a superstar. He's not at this point, but he was playing substantial time at Alabama. So there you go. So now he goes to Ole Miss. So that's an Alabama subtraction and an Ole Miss addition. And they play each other and they play in the same conference and they used to play in the same division. So that's significant for that reason alone. Okay, then we got to Brandon Turnage. And this also comes from David Johnson. So Brandon Turnage at Tennessee, he only played enough to get 9 tackles this year. He's got 48 tackles in his career. He's got 3 tackles for loss, and he's got a pick. And I remember when he was recruited, I don't know that he's turned out to be the player that he was supposed to be. It does say here at 247 Sports that Turnage, it is believed to be signing an NIL deal with the Grove Collective, which will allow him to walk on or onto the Ole Miss roster. So this is something that has been discussed in the past and in recent days. So think about this, folks, that I don't know that this is going to become, as I'm trying to navigate about 52 different windows here, I don't know that this is going to become a huge part of it, but consider this. Let's just throw out a number. Just going to throw out a number that's reasonable. I'm not talking about Quinshawn Judkins numbers or Caleb Williams numbers. I'm talking about, a good player, really good player, maybe even better than Brandon Turnage. I'm talking about a player that's going to start, be roughly an all-conference kind of player or vie for that kind of status. Say he makes $200,000 from an NIL deal. At what point is there going to be a situation where a school, and I believe it's already happened, I just don't know how often, and of course we don't know with what specific players, where a school tells a player, okay, we're trying to add all these players and we really don't have a whole lot of guys that we're kicking out the door, and we've got a scholarship issue, which once again is a thing for the first time this season, for the first time since 2019. Think about that. We have not had a true scholarship limitation in college football now for 4 football seasons until, as I understand it, after spring practice. Once the transfer portal subsides and we get through that, and the powers that be like to do a lot of things and like to set a lot of deadlines for the upcoming season on July 1st. That typically is a mark of delineation there. July 1st, that the scholarship situation needs to be back to the 85 limit. Well, a lot of teams are in trouble when it comes to that. Now, they're not in trouble like they would have been before because they're going to have players hit the transfer portal, both voluntarily and be receiving a bit of a nudge. So there's been discussion about, are there going to be situations? And I don't know, it's going to be difficult to find out specifically where a school or a collective, it should be the collective. Oh my goodness. I'm tying this into knots because the lines have just blurred between what this should be, was supposed to be, is regulated to be versus, and there are some regulations. We sometimes talk like there are no regulations on NIL. There actually are, and many of them are tied to the state. We just don't we don't talk about them much because they're difficult to see put into practice. Although the NCAA seems to be getting after Florida State, and is it Miami? No, it's not Miami. It's Florida. It's obviously Florida with the Jaden Rashada situation and with Florida State. And we'll look into that here in the next day or two. I'll have to become a little bit more educated on those situations. But where a school, getting back to my original point, would offer a player and say, hey, we're having an issue with scholarships. Your scholarship is worth 50 grand a year, just using rough numbers, $50,000 a year. You've got 2 years of eligibility remaining. We were going to offer you $800,000 total, let's say $400,000 a year, $800,000. We're going to increase that to $900,000 for you to cover the cost of tuition. And so we're going to increase your deal, and then you're going to have to pay your tuition. You're going to be a walk-on. I don't know if players will accept. I guess if the money's right, they'll accept it. I don't know if they want the status of a walk-on, or maybe they don't care. And I know that it's more involved than that. But that's been brought up at different stops. Purple Orca says, I know Oklahoma is using NIL to pay tuitions. And I believe the Ohio State-Michigan chat is starting back up, getting revved up. I posted a video that actually was just cut from Truth Be Known. Don't want to mislead anyone on our video post, but we posted a video both on the Ohio State and on the Michigan channels where I basically take off, and it's a bit of a rant and a ramble. So I warn you on the Ohio State position in NIL, and I'm taking this strictly from the social media fan argument perspective. Here's the Ohio State side. Here's where the Ohio State fan has defense and position, but this is where the Ohio State fan has no argument. And then here's the Michigan fan. Here's where the Michigan fan has their foundation of their position and their logical argument and defense for their team, their school. And then here is where they don't. And I sized it up from my perspective. It's not the perfect perspective, but then again, you might as well hear mine because that does not exist. So check out that video. You may have much to say about the Ohio State, Michigan, what has become a social media war. It's always there, of course. It's the greatest rivalry in sports. But even more so with Michigan having just won the national championship. Again, my congratulations to Michigan football and its fans. And for those fans that say we won the national championship, I have long since stated that you have every right as a fan to say we won the national championship. We just got the number one quarterback in the nation. We just sold out all of our games this year. We just fill in the blank. You have every right to do that, I believe, as a fan, because without the fans, without all of you, these guys are playing intramural sports or pumping gas or getting their accounting degree or whatever it might be. So you have every right of saying we. That's my position on that. All right. That is our update for this fine day. I have dropped the link in the chat. So if you have anything regarding the transfer portal that you would like to discuss, we certainly can, whether that's a broad topic discussion about the way all this should work or doesn't work, or your recommendations, or you asking me of my recommendations. And I think I am going to post a video here soon running down the combination of NIL and the transfer portal. And I am not going to solve all of it. No one is. I don't believe this is never going to be. There is never and won't be a way to bring college football back to the 1960s in terms of it being student, then athlete, it being class first and foremost, all those things. Not that I'm pretending that there weren't players in the 1960s where there were situations where, you don't need to go to class, or we're going to help you with this grade or whatever. Yes, that went on from the time it became competitive, and there were coaches who had reputations and status and money and their jobs on the line. That started to become a thing, but it was minuscule compared to today. Just that I've got some thoughts about how to rein this in to a certain extent. The big problem, as most of you know, whether you've been listening to me or just came up with this yourself or are listening to somebody else that knows some college football and has some sense, that without a governing body, whether that be a governing body, group of people, or one commissioner, the sport continues to work against itself, which makes it interesting. It does make it interesting. There is less that is interesting in following the NFL, for example, because everything's buttoned up, although it is the most successful and most popular sport in the country by far. It's not even close. But there's less that's interesting. There's less subjectivity to argue about because everything is buttoned up in regards to this is the way we structure the league. This is the playoff system. This is the free agency system. This is the draft system. This is it. Players will make these amounts of money. They will determine this based on the salary cap, and it's all buttoned up. Versus college football, we can have these kind of debates, and we can have speculation of what in the world is going on. Well, we're kind of pulling from this source that this might be going on, and this might be going on, and it only makes sense that this is off the rails this way. This might be kind of structured, but we're kind of grasping at straws to a certain extent. But it's never going to be, there's just too much money involved, and we've gone down this road way too far to obviously pull it back to 1975. But I think some things can certainly be done. And again, when I go through my ideas that you've probably heard before, but I'll just pull them all together in one form, I don't in any way promote it to be revolutionary, but I just think it's commonsensical, and it's still going to allow for the athletes to be free. There should be freedom of choice in this country. There is freedom of choice currently, and hopefully there will forever more be freedom of choice. For there not to be freedom of choice, and for there to be a reining in of payments, salaries, income, NIL, whatever you want to call it, it's NIL officially, but it's not NIL in a practical sense, then the sport is going to have to be pulled together as one organization. I hear a lot of suggestions from fans, and I get it, that they want a salary cap, that they want to say there should be a cap on this. Well, that's a salary cap, because otherwise there's nothing within our country, nor should there be. I'm a total capitalist, not that there shouldn't be regulations, but I'm a capitalist, that if I could be doing the most ridiculous job or service or entertainment, but if people are going to pay me for it, then I should be allowed to make $1 billion if that's what it, as long as it's honest, as long as it's honest work and nobody's getting hurt and it's legal, then if people want to pay whatever they're going to pay, then there should be no cap. However, as it currently stands, there should be no cap. However, if college football organizes into an organization, then suddenly college football is a business. And if you're running a business, just like wherever you work currently, if you have a job, your business, if they are doing a prudent job of running a business, otherwise they're not going to be in business long, have a salary cap. It's called a budget. They have a budget, and they know we designate 12%, 40%, 80%, whatever the figure, because of the rest of the way we need to run our business and expenses and so forth. We designate that percentage to salaries, to pay of the employees. And so, we had some amazing year this year. We were highly profitable. Well, we can increase that. Or just that percentage. If we're paying our employees 20% of our margin of our profit, then we had a great year. They're going to benefit from them. We can give them raises. We can give them bonuses. And I will get to the super chats in a second. I appreciate them. But if we have a down year, then depending on the size of the company and their ability to fight through a recession, for example, like the last company I worked for was, at least at that point, was pretty bulletproof. So there was a recession. There were recessions during the time I was there, but did it impact the company I worked for? Yes, but not in any such way close to the way it impacted other people in other companies. So, like, they never came to us and had to take money from us. Maybe the bonuses and the salary increases were smaller. But that's what college football would have to do. And then suddenly you can limit, because then the NIL, unless those are just going to be considered endorsement deals, then there has to be a reciprocation of, you did this for me, whatever the company that sells whatever, then they need some type of commercials or exposure on social media. They need work in exchange for the endorsement. And then that continues to be something that the players can earn on the side, just like in professional sports. But in terms of earning pay for their work on the field, that then can all be controlled. And there's no longer no ceiling. There is a ceiling, and that's called a salary cap, because college football would then be running a business just like the NFL does. There's a salary cap because the NFL is protecting its business. All right. We do appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. And if you did not catch this announcement at the beginning, we're going to do this every day this week. Every day, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Be patient with me. I'm going to make a banner. There it is. Every day this week, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to come here. We're going to update the transfer portal. We're going to have contributors come in, media guests, and give us a quick update. We're not going to sit here and talk to anybody for 50 or 60 minutes unless it's that interesting to all of you and myself. But we're going to bring in media contributors. They're just going to pop in for 5 minutes and say, we just picked up a left tackle. We just lost so-and-so, just whatever. They're going to give us an update. And we're going to take your calls, as we attempted to do today. So we're going to take your calls. We're going to run through the transfer portal. So it's going to be, boom, update. We're going to, this is what happened today. These people entered the portal. These people were committed and signed. These people are visiting these campuses, whatever the reports are that are out there. My thanks and my attribution to 247 Sports, because I am a follower of their transfer portal page. But our sources are going to be that. Our source is going to be you, and anything that you can contribute to let us know, hey, this just happened. This is rumored to be happening. This running back is visiting this campus today. Whatever the news and information and insight that you have, certainly we will take it. and we will bring in our guests for updates, and we will take your calls as well. So 4 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, right here at the Voice of College Football. And just because I have an extremely creative mind, and my creativity is without bounds, that I can come up with that amazing name that just came to me. Transfer Portal Live here at the Voice of College Football. And how long this show goes, I don't know. That is up to you. That is up to all of you. So we do appreciate all of you being here, and we're going to move on here at the Voice of College Football. We've got College Football After Dark is coming up tonight. So the College Football After Dark crew is at 10:30 Eastern tonight. And here's the deal. If you want to be a panelist on the College Football After Dark show, because this is a point of confusion, I believe, or just unawareness from people. They don't understand or have not been told. So that's on us. So my fault in not clearly communicating that. The way you get on the College Football After Dark panel is to either be a Patreon member or a channel member here at the Voice of College Football. So either YouTube or Patreon, whichever way you want to do it. And then you can be part of the panel on the College Football After Dark show. So those aren't special people or the only people that we invite or anything like that. They are Patreon members or YouTube channel members. Here in the next few weeks, we're going to do a State of the Voice of College Football address. Maybe we'll coincide that with the State of the Union address. Maybe we'll go back to back. Maybe we'll go back to back with the president and do a State of the Voice of College Football address. But we do that typically once a year after the season to catch everyone up. For those of you who care, if you don't, I totally get it. You just want football content. Absolutely. And we talk about the channel and the network and everything that we've got going on and what we would like to accomplish. And it is until next January 20th. It is Hail to the Victors. Michigan, the national champions. Troy, hey, we'll take it. I was expecting somebody to jump out there with something good, and it was Troy, of course. Troy does that from time to time. All right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football again. College Football After Dark tonight at 10:30 Eastern time. And then keep in mind, we are doing a transfer portal update Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we will see you then.